Welcome to Who You Know with Michael Sublett of Odd Moe's Pizza and Arthur Meeker of Extreme Graphics. We're shining the spotlight on businesses right here in the Pacific Northwest, celebrating their growth, their networking wins, and the impact they make in their communities. From small town gems to big community players, this is where connection meets inspiration.
I'm really honored to have Rex Watkins here on our podcast this morning. Man, what a stand-up guy. He's an anchor in the Albany community, very involved in a lot of things. One of the coolest things about Rex is that he's been a coach, a swim coach for many
40
years.
yeah.
How many?
Almost 40.
40 years as swim coach, working with the youth. And you want to tell us a little bit about, tell us about your swim coach career. How'd you get going on it?
Yeah, well, I didn't start swimming until I was 12 years old, and then I swam through high school and had an opportunity to swim at the University of Oregon. I had places, I could have gone to Tennessee, a couple other places, but the chance to swim in the Pac-10 back then, in the early 80s, was something you didn't want to pass up. And I didn't belong there, not until the end of my career. But I was a walk-on, and then we had, I just made huge time drops. The coach saw some potential in me that other coaches didn't, I guess, and I took advantage of that opportunity. But we did a swim camp in the summertime at U of O, starting my junior year. And so I worked at camp, sophomore year. I worked at camp, and then I ended up on a 5-year program. The last 2 years I was in school, I went up and coached in Hood River for a seasonal team, and fell in love with Hood River. Beautiful up there, and small team. Kids didn't have much confidence, and but I really enjoyed it. And then when I graduated from college, I got my property management license and went to work for another outfit, and the office looked at Mount Hood. That's a bad idea. I looked at that mountain every day. I lived in Beaverton, worked in Portland, and I'm like, I don't belong here. I grew up in Philomath, of all places, so went from a very small town to the University of Oregon and then to Beaverton, Portland. And I could tell I was a small town kid, so they had a coach the next summer, 88, and then 89 they didn't. And I said, I'd be interested in moving up there. And so I started my business and started coaching. A sports club had just added on a swimming pool, indoor pool, and we made an arrangement with them for the kids to swim a couple times a week and turn the team into year round. And Hood River was such a summer only mentality that parents were like, the kids can swim and go to school at the same time. And I said, well, they play football and soccer and volleyball and wrestling. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they can swim. They do it all across the country, so let's give it a try. So we went from 35 kids. About 4 years later, we were over 100. Wow. In a small town, 5,000 people. And I attribute that to the newspaper coverage, because the newspaper really took it and ran with it. And then we had an editor, the first editor, sports editor, he called us tankers, but and he showed me that that's an actual term. I hated it for swimming. But then we got a guy who swam as a youth, and he understood some of the lingo. And it was only a twice a week newspaper, but we were always in the paper about stuff, and the kids were always just going up, 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 up. And we grew because of that coverage. It was amazing. And we reconfigured the outdoor pool to make it could be covered in the summer and taken off, or covered in the winter and taken off in the summer. And what a great facility. And now it's showing its age a little bit, but yeah, I coached there until 2001, and then we moved to Albany and started coaching the Crescent Valley High School team. We had a great run there, and then the club team had, between 01 and 07, in that 6-year span, they had 4 head coaches. And some people on the team said, well, it should be nice if we had some stability. Would you be interested? And I'm like, my kids are getting to be about that age. And so I said yes, and then last March, I stepped away. I'm like, I've got too much going on. God's telling me I need to be ready for something else. And then 4 weeks later, my father-in-law died. And it's funny how God knows that kind of stuff. Yeah. And so I was able to take on my mother-in-law and my father-in-law had 17 rental units, and so we were able to add them into our inventory for my management company. And anyway, gave my mother-in-law a lot of peace of mind to know that they were being taken care of.
So go back on the coaching part of it. What does it take to be a coach? I mean, kids nowadays, they were teenagers, high schoolers, most of them.
Yeah, I've mostly coached those age groups, although there were times when I was, even as head coach, I'd reassign myself into, I'd have a spot available where I could take one of the younger groups. And the entry-level kids are so much fun to work with. I mean, they haven't developed bad habits. You know, you can work with a clean slate, introduce them to a lot of the drills, skill work that you want to do. And I was a very foundational coach. So we worked on the basics a lot, and kept the basics as a part of our program all the way through to the top level. Kids are different now than they were in the mid '80s, for sure.
What is the big difference? What do you remember seeing in the last 5 years in the
Attention span.
Yeah, that's pretty. I mean,
Yeah, I think it's a big
that's a big one. And I'll say that. So when I coached in Hood River, we were in the outdoor sports mecca of the world, as far as I'm concerned. Name a sport, you can do it there.
Yep.
Within an hour of Hood River, you can do it. And except for sea surfing, right? You could surf in the ocean, but that's an hour and a half, 2 hours away. But everything else is close. And if it had anything to do with wind or mountain biking or on and on, the kids would say, "Coach, this is a horrible place to live. It's so boring. There's nothing to do here." I would hear that from these kids all the time. And this is pre-cell phone, right? Even not even a smartphone, but I had a cell phone for the company car in the early 90s. It was one of those big bag phones, right? And it stayed in the car. And I'm like, how can you say you have nothing to do when there's all these things here you could involve yourself in addition to the typical, scout programs and 4-H and FFA and the list goes, orchestra and on and on and on and on and on. And all that stuff was available even in that small town. And those kids kind of stayed with that up until we got towards the late 90s. And then Hood River was really having a shift. It became more metropolitan flavor as a lot of people moved to town there from big places. And I didn't see the kids still honored hard work. That work ethic was still a big part of that. And we coached some kids there, a few that were pretty talented, but a lot that weren't very talented at all. But boy, they gave it everything they had. And some great memories from there. And then early 2000s through the maybe 2010, a bit of a shift, more technology stuff. Attention spans begin to lessen. Some of our workout stuff had to change to accommodate for that. We shifted from more of aerobic base to specificity or we're doing race specific work because it was the only way the kids could engage. You might remember back to when you were in school and you're like telling your math teacher, "I'm never going to use this stuff in my life," because the math teachers would hardly ever make it apply to a real world situation. Right? And I always thought as a kid, if they could combine some other class with math, maybe it would make it more interesting. Turns out if you include a business class with math, it makes it very interesting if you're interested in business and sciences and et cetera. But and then from 2010 through the 2020 up till COVID, we saw more of that shift, more specificity with the kids on the pool deck. But we also saw a shift in the kids that a struggle. Oh my God, there's so many struggles, and a lot of tears. A lot of tears. They'd come in, used to be like their best friend is not their best friend anymore, and they'd kind of roll with the punches, knowing there would probably someday be another best friend. And the last 10, 15 years that those kind of things and stuff happening at home, and if there was an international event, the kids would all take it personally. And it was a lot more drama, So
one of the things that I've heard this from people, a adults that you were their coach when they were in high school.
Yeah.
One person in particular who's a business owner, Nathan Smith.
Yes.
And I remember being in the network group
Yeah.
with you and Corvallis, and he made mention. And the thing that I hear, and I hear from other people that had other coaches in sports, is that a coach really becomes like an authority person in their life and teaches them, lessons, stuff that they don't get from home
or even at school.
a lot of people, and so that's a really important part. Do you have anything that incidents where you stepped in and you really helped people that you were coaching that you can recall that you can share with us? I'm pretty sure everything was an experience.
Gosh, things have changed so much. Back in the day, in the early '90s through the '90s. Parents wouldn't be able to take their kids on these long trips, and they would just go with the coach. And I would have these kids in the car, maybe sometimes just one kid, and you're driving from Hood River to Seattle for a swim meet, or Hood River to Boise for a swim meet, and those opportunities in the car, just the kid would just start sharing, right? And then you'd have the opportunity to give them a perspective. And I would tell the parents, some of them who would worry about this, like, you're going to have an influence on my kid. And I would say, look, you know what? This is a situation. The kid opens up a conversation. I never initiate the conversation, but the kid unless you can see something's wrong, and then you say, is there anything going on today that you want to share? No, everything is fine. I'm like, oh, I've seen that everything's fine face before, and it looks to me like there's something going on.
Right.
But the kids would open up and start to say stuff or ask questions. And my message to the parents was, I'm not going to tell these kids that they need to be 100% like me. What I'm going to share with them is things I've been able to observe in my life, working with kids and their families and seeing those interactions. And in a property management world, that was my professional life. Man, we see a lot. And we see stuff done well, and we see stuff not done well.
Right.
And the opportunity to share those stories with the kids and say, okay, look, so the situation you're in has several options. Some that are obvious, maybe some that aren't so obvious that you might work your way into, and understand that each one of these options is going to come with a benefit and going to come with a cost, right? So you have to decide which benefits do you want and which costs are you willing to endure. Mm-hmm. And then let the kid make the choice. I had a swimmer in Hood River who, Bethany Pendleton, remarkable gal. Other coaches used to say on the relays, if she got in the water and she caught the other swimmer's scent, they were dead. She would catch people like, it was like Jason Lezak in that Olympic relay when the French were ahead and he got in the water, and they're like, well, there's no way he's going to win because this French guy's the fastest 100-meter freestyler. And he caught him anyway. Bethany told me when she was about 17, she said, Coach, I want to say thank you for being the first person to treat me like an adult.
Yeah.
And that's huge, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What an influence on her life.
Yeah.
like that.
We had a gal, Lydia Kapsenberg. Oh my God, Lydia could have been Miss America. She could sing. She was 4.0 student. She ended up being assistant coach at Crescent Valley for 4 years while she went to OSU. Mega talented. When she was freshman or sophomore, it was a bad, one of the kids died at school. And, well, not at school, but a kid from school got hit by a car or something like that. I don't remember the exact situation, but she came in, she was at the pool office, and she's just bawling her head off. And I'm like, sweetie, what's going on? So she tells me. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is horrible. So horrible. You're going to remember this for the rest of your life. Walked her through it. And those kids all, they have to learn from those experiences, if they want to. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. They don't have to, I guess that's probably one way to put it, but the ones who avail themselves to the opportunity can learn quite a bit. And we had some practices at Crescent Valley especially, well, any of them actually, but we'd start practice, things would get moving along, and then one of the kids would say something about a current event or a historical event or their place in life. My favorite was this kid named Joe, who one day in practice, he said his parents were from South Korea. They came here to work on a research project at OSU. And Joe lamented in a very loud voice one day that there's no opportunity left in America. Boy, you don't want to say that in front of me with a bunch of young people. And so, well, practice stopped. And we're outdoors in the wintertime with that group at Osborne Aquatic Center in Corvallis. And practice stopped. And I said, excuse me? He said, there's no opportunity for people like me in America. I just lit up. I'm like, what are you talking about? That's not true. And he says, well, prove it. And so I walked him through all these different examples of people who had come here from other countries, first generation, and who made, they did the American dream. I said, the American dream is available for anybody who wants to pursue it. And here's why. If you're not interested in pursuing it, then the dream is never achievable. It's just like whatever. But we spent probably 35, 40 minutes that day on what it takes to attain the American dream. And he wanted to get into medicine. When he graduated high school, I told him, I said, my only goal in life is that someday when I get old and decrepit, that you become my doctor, because I know you'll care about what you're doing. And he started going through school, and then about his sophomore year, one of his science teachers at OSU discovered that Joe actually had a capability to help other students that were struggling with their schoolwork, and so he became a tutor, and then he like flourished in the classroom, and he just grew doing that. And when he graduated from OSU, he called me up and he says, "Coach, I want to take you to lunch." And I said, "Wow, that's strange, but okay, perfect. No one ever usually buys me lunch. It's usually the other way around." So he invites me. We meet over in Corvallis at Pastini's, and he says, "I want to tell you were right about something." I'm like, "Well, Joe, the team mantra.
Hang in there.
The team mantra is Rex is always right. You guys figure it out after a while that I'm just telling you the truth, and I'm not sugarcoating it, but eventually you're going to find out that yes, I was right." So I said, "Well, what was it about?" And he goes, "You remember that day in practice when I said there was no opportunity left in America for people like me?" And I go, "Oh yeah, I remember that really well." And he says, that and the minimum wage discussion were two that really stuck with me. And he says, "I want to tell you that after going to school here, I've discovered what I want to do with my life." And I said, "What's that?" And he goes, "Well, I'm going to go to, I think it was someplace in Michigan or Minnesota, one of the two." He says, "They have a program where I can do my master's and my doctorate all at the same time." Mm-hmm. And he says, "I'm going to become a professor." I said, "Why is that?" And he goes, "I discovered doing that tutoring that I was pretty good at it. And my professors all told me I was pretty good at it. And I really enjoyed it." And he goes, "You told us so many times that if we ever have a job where we enjoy the work and we're good at it, it's not like going to work." And I said, "That's right." And he says, "So that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to be a doctor. I'm going to go be a professor."
I love that.
Yeah. And he goes, "So the American dream can happen if you want it to."
Yep.
Yeah.
And you influenced that. I love it.
Yeah.
So property management, Rex. Mm-hmm. So how long you been doing that?
I got my license in December of '87 to work for another company, and then I started my own company in June of '89, and I've been doing it ever since.
So why did you get into that profession, or how, or why?
I'm gonna go. He's probably good at it, and he likes.
And he's always right.
Yeah. Well, not everybody thinks I'm right in that industry, especially some of the former tenants when they get their move-out accounting. But oh my gosh, it's a bit of a convoluted story to get into the beginning to work for the other company. But in June of '89, when I was going to move to Hood River, the company I had been working for, Pacific Property Management, said, we'll open a satellite office in Hood River and give you a base. And then you can build a company. And I said, well, that's great. And then in May of '89, they just before the move, they said, we've done some analysis. We don't think it's going to be profitable very quickly. And so we're retracting that offer. We're not going to open an office. I called my mom and I'm like, I already committed to the team. and it's kind of short notice for me to back out on the coaching deal. And my mom says, she says, well, you're young, 25 years old. Your dad was self-employed. Both your grandparents were self-employed. And my mom's dad was a real estate broker. And as kids, we built all kinds of stuff, structures. And she said, yeah, you know, you're not going to get paid a lot, but why don't you just start your own company? And I'm like, oh, well, and man, that's a steep learning curve. And there were a lot of mistakes made. But I did, and one of the guys from the Portland area company said he had a property over in Gresham, 7 units, and he said, you know what? He says, you're always deeply involved with the property. I'll just switch from the company you've been working for to your new company, and you can take care of it from Hood River. It's 45 minutes away. What an opportunity there.
Yeah.
So, and a real testament to somebody who thought I was doing a good job. So we managed that for him till he sold the building several years later. Gave me sort of a base, and then I was able to build up. I started the company with a Tandy TRS-80 computer that the outfit I was leaving donated to me, and $200 in the bank. That was it. And it took a long time to get my first Hood River area client. They were actually Lauren and Josephine Blair from Lancaster, California, where the Air Force Base is. He was a custodian for the school district, and they bought their retirement home in the Dalles, and they wanted me to take care of it until he retired. And just before he retired, he passed away. Oh. So they ended up selling the house, but we managed it for probably about 5 years before that happened. So, and then we sold that outfit and moved. But that's I don't know. That's how I got started, and I love what I do. It's not like
I like the long breath. I love what I do.
It's not like going to work, is what I want to say.
Is it American dream or American nightmare?
Sounds like a dream more than a nightmare. But there's always those
Is there
nightmares
the
involved.
There are events where I wish people would take responsibility for what they've done.
Yeah.
That's the only downside to what I do, is that there are increasingly people who don't want to take responsibility for, they've lived there for a year or 2 years, and the carpet's destroyed, or their pet has emotional support animal has made all kinds of damage to their property, or extra cleaning. And they'd say, well, I shouldn't be charged for that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, so the owner's supposed to bear all that cost?
Yeah.
That makes real estate impossible. So that's the only downside, is dealing with that. But the problem solving, the troubleshooting, it's still every month something comes up with a building that after almost 40 years of doing this, I'm like, I've never seen that before. Huh. So it's amazing. I love it. I just love it.
How many units do you manage?
We're 240 something right now. We were up to 250. Several have sold. It's an odd business. I see market trends, and I will advise my clients who are my bread and butter to sell their properties. And then some of them do, and so our inventory comes down. But we have a bit of an exit plan that we're just about ready to sign the papers on that. So we will downsize by the end of the year to about 70 units, and then just take care of those, mostly family owned, or people who I've made promises to. And then I'll coast into my retirement, and 3 years from now I'll have a 40th anniversary for the company, and then we're going to sell and move. After
all these years of property management, do you have any one particular incident that sticks out with a tenant?
Memorable. I have one. So at that point we owned 3 duplexes on Sherman Street in Albany, and we managed 3 triplexes across the street right there, and then some other stuff in that neighborhood. We still have a lot of inventory we take care of in that neighborhood, but it was pouring down rain. This had to be 2010-ish, maybe, somewhere in there. Pouring down rain. And so I left the office. I wanted to check and make sure that windy, that gutters weren't overflowing, downspouts were working like they're supposed to. We weren't having any surface water problems. And I had just been at these plexes, and everything seemed to be flowing fine. I had to get up on the ladder and clean out one downspout to get it to go like it was supposed to, but everything was making it to the street. And that area used to be a wetland. Back before they worried about wetlands, they just, filled in and built right on top of the clay. So this gal Kim calls me, and I remember I'm in my O2 F-150, and I've got one of those Bluetooth connected speaker things on the visor. And so she calls, I don't know who it is, but I answer the phone, and Rex, it's Kim. I said, hey, how's it going? She goes, you got to get over here. I'm like, I was just there. She goes, there's water everywhere. And I'm like, oh yeah. So I ran through and I said, Kim, I just checked the downspouts on your building. Gutters are flowing correctly. Everything seems to be all right. Can you help me out here? She goes, no, there's water everywhere. I'm like, well, do you have a broken pipe inside the house? I'm thinking, could be a coincidence. Never know, right? So I start walking through this troubleshooting list with her to figure out what exactly it is she's talking about. And finally I said, Kim, I need to know exactly where the water's coming from in order for me to solve this problem, because we're not talking the same language here. And she goes, it's coming from the sky.
Oh, God.
And I said, dear, thank you so much. I do not have the power to solve that problem. But we can pray about it, and maybe God will let up a little bit later today. And she's like, okay, but I just want you to know there's a lot of water. Yes, I understand. I get it. I've been out in it all morning long. But if it's coming from the sky and not from a pipe, I can't do anything about it, dear.
Wow.
Yeah.
I just have to say one thing, though. I see where your patience comes from. So you dealt with all these kids, that are learning life, and now you're a landlord, and so you kind of have to, it's like hand in hand. It's like you're guiding your tenants.
My staff, both staffs
Yeah.
actually, but more definitely at the property management company. They're like, you're too cool about that sometimes. I'm like, you know what? I've blown up a few times. I've definitely blown up a few times.
I think we
Stupid
all
is
have
as
our
stupid
limit.
does, right? But it's it doesn't help. I learned this from my granddad actually when I was a young teenager working for him on the farm. My dad would just explode when things didn't go like they were supposed to, or you weren't following instructions. My granddad, on the other hand, I knew when he was mad, but my coworkers, who were all school chums, didn't know when he was mad. And Granddad would be like, he'd watch us, and he'd see we weren't following instructions, or we were playing too much, hauling hay or whatever the case might be, and or driving the trucks back and forth. And there's one field we used to farm. You had to go down through the creek to get to the other side, and Grandpa would always go down slow and then back up the other side. And old guy, a couple years older than me, was driving the pickup on that field that summer, and he decided to see how far he could get the water to. He would hit it hard.
I knew that was.
He hit it hard, and the water
I
would
think
spray
he's
clear up
bombing down the hill.
bank, right? And Grandpa got over to the field one day, and he goes, "Man, that water sure is running high back there in that creek." And the other guys are looking at each other like, "What is he talking about?" And we started loading the pickup. I said, "Guys, what he's saying is that he noticed we're hitting that thing at about 30 miles an hour because the water's spraying clear up the bank, right?"
Thanks all
And
the
that's
way.
his way of saying, "Don't do that." Right? Or we're going to be done. And there were several times stuff like that would happen, or people were playing too much, or whatever the case might be. And it'd be 2:00 in the afternoon, and not a hot day, but he'd look at his watch and he'd go, I think we're done for today. I think we're just all going to go home and come back tomorrow. And the guys would look at me and they'd say, "There's still like 5 tons of hay left in the field. We can finish that today." And I said, "We haven't been performing up to Grandpa's expectations, and this is his way." And you could see it building up in him. He'd be like, oh, here it comes. And it was just this quiet kind of, you haven't met the standard. And I told a client of ours who owns another company, he was having trouble with one of his employees who doesn't like to show up on time. And I told him, I said, Hank, I said, there's times when I had the kids in the water, we were at swim meets, and a kid would come back from a race, and we'd always review after the race. These are your splits. Did you take your pulse when you're done? That kind of stuff to see where we were physically. And then we talk about strategies and techniques that they should probably pay more attention to in practice. And these kids would come back every now and then. They'd say, well, Coach, what'd you think? And if it wasn't really a very good swim, I would say, oh, I don't think that was a very good swim. Or I would say something like this. I'd say, obviously when you got up there for the blocks, you didn't have any expectation for your performance today. What do you mean? I said, well, I know I had some expectations for your performance based on what's been going on in practice, and the race certainly didn't meet my expectations, and I'm going to assume your expectations should have been equal to or close to what mine were. So it's pretty obvious you didn't have any expectations for your performance on that swim today. The kids, they don't like being put in that situation. They'll come back later and they will do everything they can to try to meet that expectation the next time around. You just plant the seed that, what, I'm calling you out. I'm not telling you it was horrible. I'm just calling you out that when you stand behind the blocks, you need to be ready to race. And then they would. So.
And it's funny, though, because I think that I'm a big, seed planter. I think in my industry, I kind of get them at that corner, between 18 to 22, where you hope to make the right impact on them to get them to that next step.
Yeah.
You provide that good stepping stone at the right time. And, a lot of the stuff you talked about when you talked about the youth, that, if there's one thing that I've prayed about, it was like, I hope my kids at a time in their life, at that moment, run into the right person to help them go the right direction.
Absolutely.
Knowing that, an outside influence has such a significant impact, sometimes way more than the parents will have, because they're just used to your voice and your everything, and to have somebody come in and kind of do that. And so I applaud you for being in that position and doing the right things and stuff. But it's interesting,
We've done that with our own kids, that we coached them.
Yeah.
But the kids knew on the pool deck, there were 3 or 4 other coaches they could go to from other teams.
Yeah.
And they pretty soon, I could tell my son or my daughter, not having a great day. Oh, they're over talking to Mark Maxwell. Oh, they're over talking to Scott Kerr. Or they're talking to Rick Gunther, or whoever the case might be. They're getting perspective from another coach that they feel safe with. And we tried really hard, both in the swimming world and in our personal lives, to put the kids close to other people. So I have 4 or 5 older men in my life that, they're hugely impactful. Hugely. Way more than my dad. My granddad was my hero, but then I had my college swim coach, Dan Cole, who never gave up on me. I learned a lot from that. I told him for the whole first year, Coach, I don't belong here. I don't know why you asked me to come. The girls were lapping me in practice. He's like, Rex, you just need to give it some time. And his thing was 3 weeks. Give it 3 more weeks. Give it 3 more weeks. Yeah. And after about the 4th time of give it 3 more weeks, the season's almost over, and I took 10 seconds off my 200 freestyle. And he's like, see, a little bit at a time, and it takes care of it. And then Boyd Holloway up in Hood River, who was on the hiring committee for that job, and when he was still alive, he would tell people, the only reason Rex Watkins is here is because of me. Now, that might seem a little bit funny for somebody to say that, but in the end of the day, it was true. Boyd he had 10 rental units, and he didn't turn them over to us until he got into trouble on one of them. And then he realized, I really need to hand this off to somebody else. And he trusted me so much at that point that he handed off all 10 units. But he'd call down to the office, and he'd say, what are you doing for lunch? Oh, I'm just working. He goes, get up here. Linda and I are going to have sandwiches. And I'd just trek up the hill to his house. And then he bought a property on Mount Hood, which we're now part owners of. Boyd died the month before my son was born, 25 years ago in May. But he he treated me like his own son, and I respect him like he is my dad. And then late in life, this older couple started to come to our church, Jerry and Phyllis Peterson, and they took our kids on as, they didn't have any kids. They took our kids on as extra grandkids. And Jerry and Phyllis and many others at church were so influential, both gone now, but Jerry lived to be 100 and then got COVID at his 100th birthday party. Yeah. But highly influential people, and we've tried to put our two kids in those kind of situations. And I think as parents, that goes back maybe a couple of generations of being able to do that, where people were associated outside their own tiny little circles. Get rid of this and put your kids face to face with somebody who is interested in them, right? And can be a safe place to go ask questions.
That's why that I admire the part that you're a coach, because that takes a special type of person to mentor other people's kids nowadays, and people don't take the time to do that. And so that's a really great thing. On the personal side of Rex Watkins, what do you like to do?
We ride ATVs. We have ones we use up on the mountain, and we have ones we use down at the sand dunes. So four-wheel drive ATV stuff on the mountain, but sport quads down on the beach. We have a spot we go regularly to Hauser, so we can run pretty much that whole southern section of the sand dunes. We ride motorcycles. We told Sherry she wasn't riding it very much. I ended up having to ride it just to make sure it would still run. But I have a BMW, and my son has an older, well, they're actually about the same age, 2006 Ninja.
Do you ride a crotch rocket?
I do. It's a K1200S.
Wow.
So it's 170 horsepower, something like
I
that.
never saw that.
It'll
Never
be.
saw you.
Yeah,
picture
that's
of you doing
all
that.
You know what?
Well-
In his bio, he said poor choices. So
Yeah.
I wonder if this is part of one of those poor choices.
Well, we also have a K1100 LT, which is more of a touring bike, but and it has a matching trailer. But if I get on a motorcycle, that K1200, it was ticking all the boxes, and I got it. It was my COVID bike. I remember when they were building them, and I remember reading the reviews and thinking to myself, because I had been Suzuki sport bikes all the way up until then, and then the kids happened, and I wasn't riding anymore, so we sold all the bikes out of the garage, and then 2020 happened. We started pulling them back because the kids had graduated from school. So we had the motorcycles. I just love being on the bike. It's like such a sense of let it all go away, right? And the helmets now where we can talk back and forth, but Sherry and she really likes that. So it's not hand signals and her beating on my back when she thinks I'm going too fast. But there will be moments when we pass in other cars and she'll be like, how fast did we go that time? You don't want to know. So we have those things we do, and then we have the property on Mount Hood that we spend a lot of time on, falling dead trees and doing fire mitigation work. My son became a man on that property, is what I tell people, because he learned to work not for himself, but for something else. And that was for the health of the forest. And we've seen the wildlife improve, and it's just been a lot of fun. I have a little garden. Sherry doesn't do much with that. That kind of came when Raina was a little girl. She wanted to have a garden, and so we built a garden spot, and then I still get to take care of the garden spot. But we have blueberries, raspberries, grapes, strawberries, and tomatoes. That's all I want to raise.
That's really cool.
that takes managing because they grow fast.
Yeah, right now stuff's starting to hit.
I was going to say they're getting quite screwy right now.
The
We do
blueberries
poison
are just starting
berries.
to. We got two different varieties. One of the varieties, it's interesting. The one on the east side always steps up first, and then the one in the middle, and then the third variety is a much smaller berry, but it comes on at the end. And so we have blueberries pretty much all summer long, and we freeze them into little sandwich bags, and then Sunday morning breakfast. I make Sunday morning breakfast. That's a tradition at our house. And blueberry pancakes are quite often. And sometimes I'll do blueberry and banana at the same time. Now, you don't need to put anything on that
What time
pancake.
do you usually make breakfast on Sunday?
Yeah, I was going to say. It
about
sounds like an invite.
7:30, come on over. we have a nice breakfast, and then we get ready to go to church. So,
Yeah.
knock on the door.
There you go.
You're welcome to come in. I love to cook.
So I want to back up a second. When you were talking about the modern technology with the headsets and the helmets, reminds me of a story because we ride at the dunes. We used to ride at the dunes. We're getting rid of all the sand toys because kids don't like it anymore. Crystal doesn't really, it wasn't her jam. She did
Yeah.
it because it was mine. So we got our side-by-side left to sell. And so when we got our headsets for our helmets, and I can hear what she was saying then because soon, and we'd come up to the face of the dune and I'd floor it with that turbo kick in and I right up it. And now I heard a whole different level of cuss words
I was gonna say.
because you can hear it. But the other bad thing is when you're riding with a group, there's a little button that you push to talk when you're going to talk to everybody else. You
Right.
can talk to each other
Right.
freely, but when you're talking to somebody else, you hold that button down. Well, the button for
So
the
everybody heard it.
so yeah, so hey,
Got
who's
stuck.
got the button pushed down? Is
Yeah.
that you, Crystal? Okay.
Yeah.
That's good stuff.
Yeah.
So and we had it for the kids. The kids had it in their helmets.
Mm-hmm.
I also had it for them on their quads, so we can communicate with them when they were riding their quads from the car. And it was kind of crazy, but yeah.
When our kids were little, it would have been helpful to have a group communication thing like that. But we kept them pretty close, the best we could. Yeah. The last Thanksgiving, my daughter and her boyfriend came over from Idaho. They flew in. We took extra quads. And Sherry's mom, her dad passed away April a year ago, but we invited Carol to go to the sand dunes with us for Thanksgiving. That's our annual Thanksgiving trip down there. And so she said, fine. She didn't want to cook dinner for nobody else going to be around. So we prepared everything, took it with us, and then had Thanksgiving dinner there.
Very cool.
Rain and Elias showed up. Sherry picked them up at the airport and then met us at the spot where we property that we used down there. So we got Carol out on the sand dunes. She'd never been on an ATV before, but she decided she liked riding with my daughter Raina the best. And we had Raina on one of the four-wheel drive ATVs, Yamaha Kodiak, that had a case on the back of it, so Carol would actually have a backrest. And I'm climbing up dunes with my LTR 450, and it's just like boop, 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 away you go. And Sherry's got a 400, a Z400, and it does pretty good. I think it's a little tippy, but she does pretty good on that bike. And then Elias would come up on another four-wheel drive ATV, and Raina she's always been a little nervous about mountains, but she works for the BLM, and she drives side-by-sides and rides ATVs in some pretty steep country over in Idaho. So she's been getting better. But she had grandma on the back, and so she wasn't sure what to do. And we were all up at the top of this one dune waiting, and finally she pulls back around, and you could just tell she just hit it. And she's just flying up this hill. They hit a little bump, and the bike comes off the ground, and grandma's screaming, and Raina's worried that she's going to fall off, and they get up to the top. I was so proud of them, and they're just laughing their heads off. It was the best, absolute best. Carol had such a good time, and Raina had a good time taking care of grandma too. So that was so much fun. And then she's like, Dad, I can't believe I made it. I did really good. I put it in four-wheel drive, and I went over and I looked, and I'm like, sweetie, you must not have pushed the button correctly because you did that in two-wheel drive on that bike. She's like, no way.
Yeah. I learned with the headset though that it has a volume knob and you can just turn it all the way down,
Yeah.
and you don't have to,
You don't have to
because
hear
it
it.
gives a whole new level of backseat driving when you're riding like
would-
off road like
yeah,
that. Like, like slow down. You're going too fast. Don't do that jump.
Well, it's, they don't have the steering wheel, and I get it a little bit.
There's good old shit handles.
Yeah, I know, but it's not the same. It's like when you're riding in the car with your wife driving, and you're thinking, are you going to slow down? Everybody else got their brake lights on, and she's still just plowing into the accelerator. That's when I wish I had one of those student
I can see
driver
you doing
cars.
that.
Every male in my family has a commercial driver's license, and my brother, his son, my other brother, his two boys don't yet, but they just graduated from high school and college, and they probably won't. But my son, and anyway, it's kind of an expectation. And so you have this professional driver sort of mindset when you're driving, especially on the freeway. And my wife has a 2017 twice turbocharged Ford Edge, a little pocket rocket. She thinks she's Maria Andretti on her way to work in Salem every single day. Just like, you're going to get a ticket. Haven't got one yet.
We just slow down at the right moment.
Just a reckless.
Maybe. Growing up, I had a 69 Cougar XR7 with the 351 in it. And back in the day, everybody had these, well, we all wish we had the muscle cars we had back then. But my mom would drive the car. And she'd drive into Philomath and she'd get pulled over. And the officer would come up to the car. Oh, sorry, Mrs. Watkins, continue on your way. And she'd get home and she'd be like, every time I go into town, I get pulled over in that car. I'm like, Mom, I'm telling you, they harass me. I get stopped a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I bet.
Yeah.
See, growing up in a small town, like I grew up in Fairbanks, Alaska,
Yeah.
and my mom was a labor and delivery nurse at the hospital. And so people crossed her path all the time. And as soon as they hear the last name Meeker, they're like, oh, do you have a son named Arthur? And so, oh, yeah, why? How do you know my son? Well, I pulled him over a few times in his old Nova. Or, there's a lot of stories my mom heard. And yeah. But then on the flip side, sometimes if I got pulled over or I'd be somewhere and they're going, Meeker, do you have a mom named Jackie that works at the hospital? Yeah, I do. Oh, she delivered my grandson or she delivered my kid. She's the best. Here you go. You drive safe.
Yeah,
Thank you, Mom.
Exactly. It's who knows you. That's Arthur's thing. And I tell you what, it does make a difference. And if you get back what you spread.
Yep, that's right. I believe in that.
Yeah.
I do believe in
You
that.
get back what you
Be
spread.
kind.
Yeah.
Be kind to everybody.
Well, understand. Everybody's going through something.
Yep.
I've seen so much of it. People
Yeah,
like,
as a coach and a property
Yeah.
manager,
Yeah.
oh my God, I bet you've seen it all.
well, there are days I think so, and then something else comes up. But
So, if you had a choice, looking back, would there be another business venture that you would have wished you would have done, or that you thought about doing, or
I was politically involved, and in the '90s when Bill Clinton was president and Hillary was vice president. I mean, Hillary was his wife.
pretty much,
Yeah.
or the other way around?
I started a T-shirt company. You'll appreciate this, called Patriot Tees, and the first initial marketing tool was just to take them to gun shows because Clintons were very much against guns, and we started with one shirt, a neat little logo. It was all done old school on 100% American products, so it was screen printing, and there was a lot of colors, and then I would take quotes, famous, founding father kind of quotes, and put them on the back. And I didn't have the time to really push on that business, but that would have been a fun one, pretty time consuming. But I would have loved to have made a mark on the country with thoughtful quotes from 250 years ago that sometimes we just need to be reminded of. And I don't care if the old people were white, male, or whatever. I think sometimes whatever the words are, the words matter, right? And I mean, Nelson Mandela or Mother Teresa, it doesn't matter. The people, sometimes the most compelling words come from people you wouldn't even expect. So anyway, that was one thing. Oh, and then I've talked about when I go to retirement and I moved to Idaho, I want to have a big enough shop where I can do custom trucks, not pickups, trucks, full-size trucks. Being in a trucking family, I don't know. We have a T300 with a sleeper on it that we used to pull our travel trailer. So it's got a cat engine and a 10-speed transmission, and it's only single axle in the back, but 12-foot flatbed. I always tell my wife all the things I could do to that truck, and she's like, "You've never found a vehicle that you could leave stock."
Oh.
And I'm like, "Why would you leave it stock?"
It's a confusing question.
That's like assuming that the engineers knew what they were doing. Yeah. So, but we like the bigger rigs with the specialty sleepers and stuff like that. So we may end up dumping the travel trailer someday and going that route. But
so we're getting close to the end here. You answered almost all my rapid fire questions during our conversation. I was going to ask you who your hero is. You told me your grandpa. And I know you like the outdoors. So now I have to just think of some generic stuff.
I got some.
Well, I didn't tell you about the hunting and fishing.
Oh, well, yeah.
We never got into that either. This is a whole other side of my life, which is an odd thing. Of course, when we have all this Zoom stuff going on, I don't filter my background. Here a while back, we had a class with the real estate agency, and Liz Hayes, who's the compliance officer, director for the state, she was putting the class on. And there was another gal in after the class that she said if anybody wants to stay for some questions, and I had a couple that I wanted to go through, and there was another gal from Portland area who had a couple questions, and so the three of us are kind of going through this stuff, and Liz says, judging by your background, Rex, I'm assuming you're not from Portland, because there's moose antlers all the way around, and I said, no, I'm not from Portland, but I thought to myself,
That's a weird question.
just because I have that for background, everybody else has got theirs blurred except for this other old gal who was in her kitchen. But yeah, I love to hunt. I love being outside.
That's what I was going to ask. You just answered mine. I was going to say what kind of hunting, because you can go bird hunting or you can go big game
I'm large
hunting.
game. Yeah, bears, deer,
So there-
elk, moose.
So fishing, fly fishing, or
No, hell no. I eat what I catch.
okay.
So I have a lot of friends who love to fly fish. In fact, Hood River, that was a big thing. And
Yeah.
I would just admonish my friends. I'm like, dude, you could have fed me for a week if you just kept one of those, right? But no, I prefer to fish from a boat if possible, and actually I like to hunt from drift boat in Canada when we go moose hunting. That's my favorite day. Is if we get to get on the water and drift boat. That's quiet.
It's a big animal.
It's so quiet. Yeah, you can't fit two of them in a drift boat. You will just not make it home. So
Yeah.
we've several floats had to leave one, process as much as we could, and come back the next day, and the scenery is just
Imagine.
gorgeous.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely gorgeous. What a great day. Stop for lunch on a riverbank, build a fire, just enjoy being there. It's
Yeah.
when I was a kid, and we went up there the first couple of times, I was still young and athletic, and we'd see a moose, and I'd thinking, oh, it can't be any worse than a deer. But those things don't look like they're going very fast. Oh my gosh, they cover ground, and you get where they were, and you're like, how is that even possible? You're barely getting over all the stuff. And anyway,
Yeah, they look like they're just like walking rickety.
yeah, I know. They're covering ground, but yeah, we like the good days and we like the bad days. It doesn't really matter. It's just being there that's the best part.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love being outdoors.
I got my first rapid fire question.
He's going to ask the rapid fire question.
How many of that color shirt do you own?
Two.
Okay.
Well, one slightly different shade. Both are from Arthur's outfit, but this is the latest one. The first group they did, the logos were a little bit smaller and harder to see. But we ordered several different colors, and when I wear this one and I go to the dump, I don't have to put on a safety vest. I'm already wearing a safety gear.
You're a thinker. You're a thinker.
I just wondered about that. That was like the thing is like I have a lot of people that I know that are in your industry in a way, and they all wear the same color shirt pretty much.
Yeah, I don't
guess-
like being the desk property manager. I kind of like
Yeah.
being the on the property
Yeah.
manager. That's my favorite part. Yeah.
And they were just saying it's like I don't want to wear two shirts.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, that works.
Got more questions?
That was my best one. I would say that it's gonna go downhill from here.
Yeah. Well, that's okay. I'm used to running downhill.
What's your favorite food?
Moose lasagna.
Moose lasagna. That's it.
Okay, so what does moose taste like?
I'd put it. Have you ever had elk or
I have.
venison?
Yeah,
Okay,
I
I'd put it
have.
kind of between that and beef. So moose is a coarser grain than you would see with the deer or even the elk. Coarser grain meat. Very. Some people say it has a sweet flavor to it. It's not like some elk and venison can be kind of smelly.
Yeah.
Moose doesn't really have that, and you kind of know when you break into an animal, depending on what the deer's been eating. Like if it's a Willamette Valley floor deer, it's not going to have hardly any scent to it at all. But if it's an Eastern Oregon high mountain, probably going to have pretty strong scent. Elk almost always has a strong odor when you open it up. But the moose is, and of course that depends on preparation, but it can be very tender. It makes great hamburgers. I mean, we've done so much with hamburgers with the moose, but my favorite is the lasagna. We usually have the ground meat processed at Voget's in Hubbard, and they do a breakfast sausage, and or an Italian sausage. We take one of those packages and the straight moose burger, mix them together, and then you could call it kind of like a Northwest lasagna if you want, because it's got a lot of meat in it, but then it also has a lot of Tillamook cheese, and we like to put olives, sliced olives in it, because that adds another essence to the flavor, and then a few noodles. But even cottage cheese, we put cottage cheese in it, and people are like, this is very strange. Cottage cheese is a poor man's ricotta. So we serve it to places, and we've actually made it with bear also, the lasagna with bear.
Yeah, that's what we do. We do half bear, half
beef. Yeah. And people, I'll tell them it's bear lasagna or moose lasagna. They're like, oh, I don't know if I want to have any. And then they have some. The next thing you know, they're back for seconds or thirds. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think on rapid fire question, we're going to stop asking like food because now I just got hungry. Yeah.
I'm like, this sounds so good.
What's your favorite type of car?
Oh, fast.
Fast. Okay.
Comfortable.
Comfortable.
Comfortable,
Fast. Comfortable.
Yeah.
Chevy,
wheels are
Ford,
Ford.
Dodge.
I'm a Ford man. I'd like a newer Mustang. I wish I hadn't sold my 69 Cougar when I was in my 30s. That went down the road to take care of another problem. But I'm a pickup guy. I mean, I have a 69 Ford crew cab pickup that has a 410 and a Clark 282 5-speed out of an F600, and then the 205 transfer case. It's got a high pinion front end out of a 79 1-ton. And then I have a 52 F5. That 410 and Clark transmission are going to go into the 52, and I have a 410 built up with the ZF 5-speed behind it. I have a 410's out of a Lincoln. I mean, the 429's out of a Lincoln, and the ZF 5-speed's out of a 96 F350.
And you're going to do that in retirement in your big shop in Idaho.
Yeah.
I like that.
And then who knows where to go from there. It's hard for me to get in and out of cars anymore. I mean, I can do it. I have a smart car, but I don't know. I like the ride of a longer wheelbase, but at the same time, sporty car.
Like to go fast though.
I've always wanted a mid 80s gray market 928S. I drove one once. The car was amazing.
Mike has a Cobra.
There we go. I love those. What year though?
66.
Oh, so the actual AC Cobra. Oh, which
There's
is
an Everett Morrison.
Oh,
And he has a Mustang that he's been working on.
Yeah, 66 Mustang.
yeah.
Well, I got it out of a field, been in there for 30 years. And so you start popping out these numbers. And if you saw the glossy eye look over here, I never knew how to work on vehicles. And I was able to recover my Mustang that I had. They'd been sitting in this guy's backyard for about 30 years. And I told myself, I'm like, okay, I need to learn how to work on cars. And this car is one, they've got all the parts you need. And it's old, so it's simple and all that kind of stuff. And so I had a neighbor that kind of helped hold my hand with some things, and YouTube University. And I've been able to go through the entire thing, and she's running, and I'm just getting, because I put all new suspension and all new everything underneath it, and I'm getting it aligned right now. But
Oh,
I brought
nice.
it back from the dead. So
Yeah, those are great. You have a lot of pride with those.
it's got the manual 3, you know.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah,
my.
so it's a
So is
little
it
bit-
straight 6? No,
289.
289.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's it's got some unique characteristics to it. The 3 wasn't as sought after. You know, they don't call it a, it's more of a durable transmission, which
Right.
is fine for me because I have the Cobra if I want to go play.
Sure.
But so I like the speed and stuff like that too. What's funny is I have to go to Washington here. I'm still suspended in Washington. I had to get my license. I had to get my license reinstated when I moved to Oregon to open up the company. When I opened up my pizza place, I was in California because I was suspended in Oregon, Washington, and Montana at the
Renegade.
moment. So.
Oh my goodness gracious!
So-
So you did get pulled over a lot.
I tell you, when you say, "Oh, I get out of this or that," I'm like, God, I did not have that luxury. I got stuff like evasive lane changes tickets. You know, they knew me. I'd sell a car, and the person I sell the car to would get pulled over the next day 3 or 4 times, and they'd walk up and go, "Mr. Oh," he goes, whatever, and they go, "Oh no, I just bought this car from him," kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that was, you talk about your mom having the prereq. Yeah, no, me, it was me. I was the exact opposite. It was like.
Hey, since you have the investment company and stuff, and you invest in properties, is there any investments that you look back at? What were you thinking?
We've done them all for long games, so
Well, that right there tells me that's.
no, and I'm not afraid of a project. The stuff we're selling here and buying in Idaho, and I'm not even there to work on them, but we go over, we make the list that needs to be done, and we hired a good property manager over there who's got good connections with the vendors in the area, and we've been able to, as we buy a property, go through and get stuff fixed up, and then she fills them up, and then we get the next one, and it's been working pretty good. But I would say if somebody's going to buy real estate, probably from all my clients over the years, I heard somebody tell me once that you make your money on the day you buy it, which means you don't overpay, and you be careful the financial package you put underneath it. Well, as mortgage guys, they probably know that too. So if you over leverage a property, you will probably never catch up. So Glenn Hack, a former friend of mine, he committed suicide 20 years ago. Sad story. Oh my God, sad story. Love Glenn. He shared an office with me in Ed River. And he told me early on, he's like, commercial, and he had a lot of commercial properties. He said, don't mortgage more than 50% on a commercial property. It just, you won't be ready to ride the bumps out if you do that. And, in the others, we usually do about 75% going in. Well, we did. We don't do that anymore because we have capital available to do the loan. But if you aren't careful with the underlying financial structure, then that property is it may on paper cash flow, but in reality, it's probably not going to. And then you won't take care of it, and then it'll be a depleted asset, and then you'll have trouble when you go to sell it, if you go to sell it. And if it's a rental, if it's not well taken care of, people notice that, and then they won't want to pay as much. So all of that fits into what it looks like 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road, right? So it's real estate's a great game to get into, I think. I would say that's my expression of the American dream. But you've got to be careful how you structure it to start with, and then if you do that right, you will reap the benefits, or if you don't, you will just keep paying.
Oh, thank you for that wisdom. Is there anything else that you would like to share with us?
I think Arthur, you're a great guy,
Well, thank you.
and I appreciate Arthur's he's like the yin and yang with me. So I get all excited about stuff, and he's calm, or
Vice versa.
Yeah, sometimes the other way around.
Yeah.
So
one of my questions, though, Rex, was my rapid fire questions. A typical one I ask, coffee or tea, and I already know the answer to that.
Neither. I was wondering if you were going to bring that up because I don't know if we're out of time, but you remember the story in the Bible in Genesis, Adam and Eve and the forbidden fruit. I've told you this. Are you familiar with that story? Forbidden fruit. Okay, so the devil comes along as the snake and tries to convince Eve to partake of the forbidden fruit. And the story is that it's an apple. But if you consider where the cauldron of the species is, where the Garden of Eden most likely was, and you consider that the coffee bean is actually surrounded by a meaty fruit to start with, and you consider that the idea of the story is that opens our eyes. Caffeine is a stimulant, right? So my take is that the coffee plant was probably actually the forbidden fruit, and that when Eve partook of it, stimulant from the caffeine, blah, 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 right? Wasn't an apple, not likely to have been an apple tree there. More likely to have been the coffee bean.
Huh.
So
I will say what's funny about that is I have the opposite reaction to coffee. It actually calms me down.
Yeah, some people it does.
Because my
So you were a little ADHD. Yeah.
just a
hair.
Just a pinch, a skosh.
You know how
Coached a lot of kids like that.
you know how doctors and professionals have the little initials at the back of their name?
Yeah.
He has that at the back of his name.
Yeah, well, I don't know if you notice, I've been spinning around here. I move my feet.
Yeah.
I flip my fingers and stuff like this, but it's just a way I can help myself listen better and stuff. I've had to learn how all that works, you know.
See,
so,
you learn to accommodate. You learn
Yeah.
to take care of it.
yeah. Oh, I bridge gaps. I talk to a lot of people because I don't take medicine for it, other than I guess caffeine in the morning. But I always tell people that everybody has gaps. Everybody has gaps,
Oh my
and
gosh,
you
yeah.
just have got to figure out the bridge that you need to get where you need to get. And I surround myself with some amazing people.
Amen to
And I
that.
mean, like I'm a digital kindergartner.
I'm going to use that. Everybody calls me a tech dinosaur, but
Yeah.
I'm going to tell them, no, I'm just a digital kindergartner.
Yeah, because you're in class. You're slowly learning.
I'm a
just
slow learner.
There's, oh,
They all know that
yeah.
already.
Yeah, I'm like cold molasses
Yeah.
when it comes to learning, you know. And so, but no, and so I do that. But that's the thing with caffeine, which is really strange you bring that up because
Yeah.
I can see what you're talking about, and you know, really, there's a lot of.
I just thought about that like 10, 15 years ago, and I decided
I've
gonna-
heard a lot of theories around that too.
I'm
Like,
going to
theories
make
on
that
it.
my story and see how many people I can sell it to.
I like that.
Thank you
Sorry,
very
I was
much.
late.
Thanks, Rex, for being here on our show and coming in and telling your story and who you are and what you do. And thank you for all that patience you put into coaching kids.
It's needed.
It's very rewarding.
It's very needed.
Yeah.